Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. What I want to do is I want to look at 3 support gameplays, and I specifically only want to look at their items and talk about why they buy the items that they do. I've been getting a lot of questions on stream as of late, and just in general in Discord, on what items to buy when it comes to supporting. And yes, it's true, you have a lot of options, you know? A lot of position 4 heroes can buy a whole variety of items, so we'll be looking at a Pango replay, we'll be looking at a Brana gameplay, and a Silencer gameplay. We'll be talking about 3 gameplays, all in the same game, and talking about how they relate to each other within this match. So without further ado, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We post here daily, and let's get into it. Alright, so let's get into our first contestant. The first hero we're going to be looking at here is Pangolier. This is the position 4 for Polaris this game, and I want to specifically talk about kind of a couple different items that are really interesting on his gameplay. I thought he did a really cool job and good job of itemizing this game. So first things first, pretty standard starting items, you know, some mana items for Pango, a fluffy hat, just a casual one for HP. And the first item he has queued up is a Blink Dagger. Now, I think a lot of people might see this game and say, yeah, it makes sense, right? He's Pangolier. But they might see this game and say, he has a Tidehunter, right? He doesn't have to initiate. But the problem is, Tidehunter as an initiator, if Tidehunter has to go first, what ends up happening is Tide will never get a good Ravage. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, if Tide can't get a good Ravage if he has to go in first, then why would Pango be able to get a good initiation? He has a AoE ulti. The thing is, Pango's AoE ulti isn't really used as much of a AoE ulti. More often than not, Pango ulti is actually used to chain stun one person for like 8 seconds, or, 4 seconds, rather than stunning everyone for 2 seconds. And so yes, Pango is the hard initiator of this game, and will be that for the entire match. And funny enough, what's also great about the Blink Dagger, as we'll see in this clip here, not only does it allow him to be the frontline initiator, by the way, right now he's rolling, this is a funny replay bug, but it also allows him to be the Lifestealer and Festbomb. Lifestealer and Festbomb with Tide is not bad, but Tidehunter, having Ravage at such a long cooldown, makes it a much worse infest target. Right? Tidehunter typically prefers Storms, and Slaughter heroes he can make plays with more consistently at a certain point in the game. And yeah, he's just going to be able to chain up this Gyro in the fight, Infestbomb with the Lifestealer, beautifully done. So the next time he's going to end up going this game is, funny enough, Aeon Disc. Now you might be wondering to yourself, Speed, why would he buy Aeon Disc this game? How come he doesn't just buy a Yules for X combo and Rocket and canceling Legion duel, right? Like, let's say she doesn't have a BKB, you can Yules her when she duels. Even Grimstroke ulti, right? It's really nice to be able to Yules yourself if you get Grimstroke ultied. The problem is, not necessarily that he will get bursted. Even though he could get bursted, of course, Aeon helps him not get bursted. That's obviously the point of the item. What's actually most valuable about this Aeon Disc is the fact that his typical frontliner can't properly frontline this game. What do I mean by that? Tidehunter, okay? Tidehunter is your frontliner this game, right? For Polaris. We can all agree on that. However, what is the major problem of Tidehunter as a frontliner this game? Who counters him very hard? The counter to Tidehunter this game, that is very hard, is the Legion. You can't purge duel. It's that simple. Because you can't purge duel, if Tidehunter has to frontline, it is very likely that OB Neon will drop all of their spells on him and blow him up, and that's obviously not how you want your fight to start. And so I really like the Aeon Disc for that reason, considering it is really good against duel, and it actually lets him frontline against that duel, so that DP and Tide don't have to do it this game. And immediately getting into that, this was such an incredible play. After this, I'm going to go into the next items, not as much in depth, but this play really had to be looked at here. As we see, he pops a smoke, and this is the value of his build. You can see he's trying to make this play intentionally. Do you think it's an accident that Boomy is on the front line with an Aeon Disc and a gem and roll up? Absolutely not. And because of this fight, right, because of the initiation, he can easily roll up for the Kunkka, right, for the Kunkka X combo, easily cancels out the Grimstroke W, and all of a sudden, this is looking like a fantastic fight. As they get a really clean jump onto the Grimstroke, Tidehunter is able to get Ravage off easily, right, because of all the vision that Boomy provided, and even if he did get jumped and caught, he would have been able to Aeon Disc and would have been fine. Next up, he ends up making the most unorthodox item purchase you'll see in a Pango in a while, but it makes a lot of sense this game. He ends up going bots. So why bots, guys? The reason why you would go bots in a game like this is literally because his team has no wave shove. I've been talking about this in all my recent videos. Literally, yesterday's video was about wave shove. Like, you need a hero to push in the lane, especially when the enemy team is going to be split pushing when they're behind. You need someone to respond to the waves, right? You have to respond to the waves. So let's look at his heroes. Tidehunter. Kind kind of slow. Unless he has Ags, he can't one-shot waves, so it takes a long time, or Deso, which he doesn't have. DP, really not that great of a wave shove hero. To be fair, at level 15, she gets a Crypt Swarm talent, and it makes, clearing waves better. So with this build and this talent, it's not terrible. It's not what it used to be, so she's alright. Silencer does not push waves. Lifestealer is mediocre at best at shoving waves. So his team simply is just not that good at shoving waves. They're pretty bad at it, actually. And so he fulfills the role, especially as a hero like Pangolier. And finally, the last item he goes is Basher, but that's for obvious reasons on Pango. You get to cast Swashbuckle, and you bash people. He's just playing the control route, doesn't need to go any sort of DPS. In fact, it would be stupid for him to go DPS when he has a Death Prophet, and a Lifestealer, and even a Silencer support on his team. Very high DPS heroes. He doesn't need to be the guy doing damage, he just needs to make sure that they can do the damage. Alright, next up, let's move on to the Mirana. Next up, let's talk about the Mirana, Genuel and the Mirana. Unfortunately, Obi Neon did lose this game, and he went a very weird build, but I'd still like to talk about why I think he went it, and why it's important to know this info. So, in this game in particular, what he ends up going is a Solar Crest into a 4-staff build-up. He even maxed out arrows, so definitely some, even though maxed out arrow is definitely a thing, especially with heroes like Legion and Kunkka, it's a little bit weird. He's going kind of a weird build this game. Nonetheless, let's talk about why Solar Crest. So, there's a couple of main reasons why Solar Crest. Number one, the majority of his team's damage is going to be physical. Gyrocopter going a build like this with Crystallis into Ags and no points in Rocket Barrage is practically all physical. Legion Commander is basically all physical. Kunkka is not all physical, but he is going Shadowblade into BKB. So you can see there's a very clear theme with his team comp, and therefore doubling down and going Solar Crest when your team is primarily physical damage seems very reasonable to me, and I can totally understand why he would do it. And just to give the simple explanation, if you guys aren't familiar with why you would buy a Solar Crest with a ton of physical damage, it reduces the armor and movement speed of the enemy team. The armor is very important because that's what makes physical auto attacks do more damage, but also the movement speed is key because physical auto attackers tend to get kited. People try to disengage against it, and therefore the movement speed, while it's not a ton at only 10%, is still noticeable when you complete the item. And now for the second item, why 4-staff? Well, honestly, the enemy team doesn't have crazy chain stun. The major chain stun they have is Pangolier. And to be fair, honestly, buying 4-staff against Pangolier chain stun makes it very difficult for him to chain stun you. If he uses roll up or Yules, 4-staff is a good option to get your teammate out of the way and prevent them from getting chain stun. Also, if you guys are familiar with Lifestealer and how the hero generally functions, it really needs to burst the target that it goes on within rage duration. So if you can 4-staff the teammate that is getting gone on with rage duration, right? 4-staff anytime you see rage basically, then you'll have the capability to kite out the enemy team's carry's major timing, if he's not really far ahead, which unfortunately he gets this game, then it's really big. So I do like this side of build. And finally, last but not least, we got the Silencer. I do want to mention that every single one of these heroes does have a magic wand. In fact, if you click on the game, Gyro has one, Kunkka has one, Legion has one, Grim has one, Mirana has one, Pango has one, Tide has one, DP has one, Silencer has one, and Lifestealer has one. The reason why that's important, even though it's not really relevant to the video, is just because I still see people not buying Magic Wand. Guys, it's like the best item in the game, you should probably just buy it. So moving ahead to the Silencer here, besides the fact that he has Dust and plenty of Sentries and, a ward, the key thing here is the 4-staff, right? Pretty basic build. Now, why is it a good 4-staff game? Honestly, the main reason why it's a good 4-staff game is to help save people from the various chain stuns. Buying a Glimmer Cape against mostly physical damage, while it can help people to stay alive if there's no detection, in a pro game, that's not that likely. If you think in your pub they're not going to buy detection or aren't buying detection, you can opt for a Glimmer Cape over the 4-staff. But personally, I'm a massive fan of 4-staff, especially against physical comps like this, because it gives you actually quite a bit of HP at 150, could keep you alive against Flak, where a Cloak from Glimmer Cape simply will not, right? Especially considering you don't want to just Glimmer Cape yourself in a team fight unless you really have to, and so I like the 4-staff for that. On top of that, as I was saying, being able to push someone away from the potential chain stun, which is generally going to be a Kunkka Torrent combo into an arrow, is really nice. You can basically disrupt X combos into Mirana arrows with a 4-staff. It's not perfect because they can always just throw the arrow before the torrent but as you can imagine, it depends on the scenario, and a lot of the time you will be able to get the Force Staff off. And funny enough, he ends up buying a Glimmer Cape next, even though it's not that crazy, you know, Glimmer Cape, Force Staff on a position 5 hero. It doesn't get more basic than that. The thing is, he had an Aeon Disc queued up for like the last 15 to 20 minutes, and all of a sudden he changes it. Let's take a look at why he changes it. And, you know, to be fair, this is a very reasonable reason. For instance, you know, Aeon Disc doesn't do very much against a Aghanim Scepter Lifestealer from the Grimstroke, which in the middle of 5 heroes, keep in mind, solo kills the Silencer, which is very, very saddening if you are the Silencer. So in response, he's like, yeah, this Aeon Disc is not going to be good enough. Of course, it would still buy time against the Ags, but considering that the Ags from Grimstroke generally is going to be diving the backline, that also means that there will be no detection. And so yes, he could go Ghost Scepter, but honestly, with the duration of Grimstroke ulti being so long, maybe you guys aren't too familiar with it, right? It gives you an illusion for 25 seconds. Ghost Scepter lasting about 4 seconds is clearly not enough time, considering it's literally a fifth, less than fifth of the duration. So yeah, ends up being a really good Glimmer game for him to stay alive. Of course, it's not too great in blocking that much damage, but in a situation like this, against illusions, against units, it's actually really nice, right? Against Lycan units, it can keep you alive. Against something like Flak, it actually can keep you alive in the fights. Against Peel illusions, it definitely can keep you alive, as these units will simply just never have detection. And on that note as well, one more thing I'd like to say before we end off the video is if you are to buy Ghost Scepter in the scenario, while it's not bad and definitely legitimate, the problem about Ghost Scepter is also it doesn't give you an opportunity to get out of vision. So if the Lifestealer illusion was to go on CML here on the Silencer, and, you know, he clicks Ghost Scepter, it still can track him the entire way there. Sure, it would buy 4 seconds, but they'll always know where he is. It would provide vision on him, similar to other units that would dive the backline to give vision of Silencer and burst a key target like him, and therefore the Glimmer is a better option. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this was some new and different information you haven't heard before. If you haven't, it's just a touch up for you. Still, it would mean the world if you guys could smash the like button. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace!